welcome to the Crafty Boys, where we do stuff and talk about crap and other things. So there you go. Hi everyone, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm going to post this live video from our YouTube channel on the Facebook page since we're not allowed to do anything there. So I'm going to go do that while you guys talk among yourselves.
Okay, how you doing, Locke?
No, I'm doing all right. Let me see. What to say? We had 2 days of extreme heat, and then it sort of cooled off. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Mostly I've been worried about what's going on with friends of mine who are up in Flin Flon and so had to evacuate because of the forest fires.
Right.
So that's sort of uppermost on my mind. Not cheerful news, obviously, but I am doing fine. So,
good.
Yeah,
it's kind of sort of Canada Day weekend. It's like Canada Day
right.
Tuesday.
Yeah. So,
but a lot of people took Monday off, including me.
Yeah, why would you? Who's going to do
exactly?
Any excuse to party, especially now, especially this year. This year, it means something extra to celebrate Canada Day.
Yes, I think that could be true.
Yeah. So, Locke, what are you drinking this evening?
Well, in reflection of that celebration and so on, I am drinking a local product, a Canadian gin. Indeed, one local to your neck of the woods. I'm drinking the Empress 1908 Indigo Gin.
Oh,
wow.
Look at that, eh? Pretty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why did you pick this one up, or you just haven't had it before? What's the deal?
Well, so I got a little bit of it as a gift for my birthday this year.
Excellent.
And I thought, wow, this is sort of a nice little luxury item. What I haven't tried yet and hope to do at some point is they have one that's elderflower rose gin.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Whereas this is just a sort of a standard juniper gin flavor, I think, is sort of the idea. It's just a neat color.
Yeah, it kind of looked a little bit blue.
Well, yes, it looks very blue. Plastic is very stubborn. There we go. Ooh.
So just to give a little love to Empress Gin. So basically, Empress Gin, which I'd heard of, I don't think I've ever had their product, come to think of it.
No.
But they're based out of Sydney, BC.
Oh.
So they are a spirit maker of all kinds of cool things. Is this the one you're talking? The elderflower rose gin? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. That I want to try.
That sounds amazing. Cucumber lemon. Oh, that sounds actually quite good. Cocktail gin, oaken gin. Gin. Lots of gin all over the place, gin. But these are great. I think that I know that I've been to their establishment at some point or walked by it at the very least. I did take note of it, but anyway, find your Empress. So here we go. Alberta, BC, liquor stores. But so I mean, why not? I like. I got to say that as I get older, I tend to still drink beer, of course, but more importantly, I am kind of, I'm getting into, and this is actually Locke's fault, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I ever had an old fashioned, or at least a proper old fashioned, was we walked into some cocktail bar restaurant thing in Vancouver, somewhere downtown. We were wandering around, and you said, "Oh, hey, that's a chain. I like that place." So we went in, leather seats, the whole thing. It was great. And ever since then, I get old fashions whenever I can.
High Steakhouse.
But that's
High Steakhouse. Yes.
Mm.
I mean, that's a good place.
Yeah, we went in there. There's one sort of in downtown Vancouver somewhere, and but I guess they're all over the place. Come to think of it.
The last time I went to one was in Whistler.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Although we didn't have steak, which I kind of think I'm gonna have to go back and have steak.
It's expensive, right? But I mean, it's
pretty.
The way to do it, and I don't know if they all do it the same or at all, but used to be the way to do it. Pick the happy hours. Yeah.
So, Alan, what are you drinking tonight? I know you're the only one with beer, I think, this evening.
Yeah. So I picked this up a couple weeks ago. This is from Souk Brewing here in local southern Vancouver Island. It is their Japanese lager.
Oh, that sounds.
And they've got this cool little branding on all of their cans now. This sort of like this checkered kind of plaid looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my pour.
Nice. Effervescent.
Yes,
Guinness glass, well appropriate.
I don't know what differentiates a Japanese lager from a regular lager. It says a tribute to the thirst-quenching lagers of Japan. This beer combines rice with malted barley to create a light, refreshing, and easy drinking brew. So let's have a go here. It smells like a lager. It tastes like a lager, but it's just a little bit different, and that's probably the rice that's giving it. It's a bit of a sweeter flavor than you would expect from a lager.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and there's a little bit of a kick on the back end.
Nice.
It just kind of like hangs around on the tongue.
When you say a kick, like hoppy.
Yeah, there's a hoppy sting that's left on the palate after consuming it. This thing clocks in at 5%, and it is a 20 IBU, which is a little bit high for a lager, which is probably why I'm detecting the hops.
Nice.
But overall, a good beer. I mean, this isn't something that they put out regularly, I don't think. This is a special brew, so if you're going to get it soon while it's still available. But yeah, enjoyable and highly quaffable. All right, Shane, what are you drinking?
All right, well, this evening I am drinking homemade wine. It's a white wine. It is made by Alison McGrain, circa 2022. And I've had a bottle in the fridge for a while, and I just hadn't opened it. And I ran out of beer. I drank all my beer yesterday. So I shared the singularity with fan of the show, Julian.
Oh, cool. What did he think of it? I mean, it's not really his.
He enjoyed it, but it's not really his taste. That is correct. Yeah, he was kind of. You take it or leave it kind of attitude about it.
Yeah.
But this white wine is great. This is what started our brewing adventures, was wine first, because the kits are pretty hard to screw up. But
so
I have no complaints.
I want to circle back to Locke for a moment there. So, I'm not a big drinker. If I do drink, it's beer. Right. I've had wine on occasion. I don't really like wine. I've had whiskey a few times. Don't really like whiskey, at least not the ones I've tried, which are probably all cheaper varieties.
Sorry, you said you don't like whiskey?
Not really.
All right. So anyway, the show's about me and Locke now. You were saying about whiskey.
Well, so gin, I've never had gin before.
Really?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about it. Educate me
Oh, have you not ever had a gin and tonic?
No.
No, you haven't even had a gin and tonic.
No.
Okay.
There's a surprisingly high amount of stuff that I've never had before.
You asked, and you shall receive.
Okay.
Okay. First thing I'm going to say about gin is that, so when it was introduced, as a sort of a major, major social beverage. Question as to how social it really was, but when it first became a big deal was in the sort of 17th century Dutch period, and the Dutch used to distill gin as something that because you could preserve things with it. It was great for if you're doing long voyages. It's a preservative. So that's sort of its use case, if you see what I mean. But pretty soon, once it's around, people start drinking it because it also gets you really drunk. And so for a society that was mostly sort of used to, lighter fare sort of beers and sort of maybe 7%er kind of wines.
Yeah.
This was quite radical, and so distillation held with it a little bit of sort of social disrepute, so much so that William Hogarth in the 1730s produced a couple of prints, Beer Alley, it was Beer Street and Gin Lane, I think it was. And Beer Street, everybody's sort of robust and happy and having a jolly time. Gin Lane, it looks like Lower Jarvis or the Lower East Side. It's like crack alley. And so that was the social perception of gin at the time, was that this is for crackheads. This is essentially what you would have been turning to before crack was available. So you've got on the picture of Gin Lane, you've got all kinds of disruption. The pawn shop is thriving. It's the only thing that is. Somebody passed out actually dead from too much drink. Woman allowing her baby to fall over. All the bad things that the social bads that come from people getting way too wrecked up. So that's a sort of the social history of gin sort of through sort of the 17th and 18th centuries. In the 19th century, where it found its real application was in India. And during the Raj, one of the key important questions was how do you control malaria? When eventually they found that quinine would do the job, providing people with quinine, well, okay, it's bitter and it's sort of unpleasant tasting. Most people seem to agree. That being the case, they found, well, I know what we'll do. We'll mix it with fizzy water and gin, and thus the gin and tonic was born.
Interesting. That's actually pretty cool.
Speaking of which, I'm going to go get some fizz so that we can see how the color of this changes.
Okay, cool,
excellent.
So I mean, I kind of am intrigued. I want to try some of this stuff. So I may have to try getting some Empress gin at some point just so I can try it out. But I don't know. Do you mix it with stuff? I mean, obviously, if he's getting
generally, gin is something that you would mix with something because it's not necessarily I mean, you can drink it straight. I have drinking it straight, but I mean, essentially, it's like you have a shot of it, but you, at least in my experience, you dump a lot of ice into it. Like you have like 4 or 5 ice cubes, and that's kind of how it is. It gets really nice and cold. But I think for the most part, generally mix gin with something else. It's not necessarily. That is gorgeous. Holy shit.
Yeah, totally.
Now, part of what's gone on there is that I've added also a dash of Saint Germain liqueur. This isn't a proper gin and tonic, although my history lesson took you all through that. What this is fizzy water, just a dash of Saint Germain, and the Empress, and you see it's gone just a slightly more of a purple color.
Yeah,
And it's a pretty attractive looking thing. Yeah.
That is incredibly cool.
It kind of looks like Romulan ale.
Note to the gallery. But overall, I mean, to me, it looks absolutely amazing.
It does.
Why
I want to try it right now. But I can't.
Get in there, man. I'm surprised you've never had gin before like that. I'm a little shocked about it.
It would be the list of stuff I haven't had is probably longer than the stuff I have, just because if I'm going to drink, it's going to be beer.
You tend not to go to hard bar. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think there's arguments on both sides of the ledger as to what the so I think a lot of it depends on how much that you drink. Given how much you drink, Alan, I think beer's probably not going to kill your waistline too badly. And I think you're a pretty active guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So now, for me, I think probably having something of a high alcohol sort of tolerance. One of the appeals of distilled products add water is that I'm not adding a lot of carbs. One.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sort of narrowing the bandwidth of the variety of things that my body is processing every time I have a drink, right? So that's for me. That's being a consideration. Has it worked? I don't know. We'll see what my doctor says. Don't have one yet, but likely will need to get a medical if I'm going to. Because I am that age. So
yeah, totally.
Age, isn't it great?
Yeah.
Don't everyone go yay at once?
Yeah. Getting old sucks.
You know what? I have nothing to complain about. I've got to say, the saddest thing about getting older for me has been the number of people who didn't make it all the way here.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I've been for eons. I think for me, it was actually in 2015 when I started to realize that, there's age is a thing where I had lost track of a friend of mine, Travis. He had moved to Toronto. He was getting heavy into Bitcoin, kind of becoming sort of a mover and shaker in that sort of world at the very beginning. And then I saw him in 2015 and at the beginning of the year at David Corey's birthday party, and because Travis and him were cousins, and then all of a sudden I look at him and I realized something was very different. He looked at me and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, how's it going? Haven't seen you in ages." They said, "Oh, I just moved back to from Toronto to Victoria," and I said, "Oh, you are speaking weird." Like he was speaking as if he had surgery, which he had, because he had whatever that cancer is called, where you're brushing your teeth and you're like, "What are those white things on the underside of my tongue?" And so that he just goes like this. He undoes his shirt, and he had an incision that went from the base of his chin down sort of midway through his chest, and then two that went straight across to his shoulders. and I guess they'd opened him up and they pulled every single lymph node out, and then declared him cancer free. And then he started feeling odd in like September of that year, and the cancer had spread to multiple organs, and that was kind of it. But that was the first time that, like, I've had friends who've died many times, but that was the first one that I remember kind of pausing long enough to go, oh wow, that's oh wow, this is a marathon runner, a guy who was incredibly healthy, did the same thing that Todd did, friend of the show, was a gardener for a long time, but this thing just cut him down like very quickly, and it was, what can you do? But ultimately, yeah, it was just one of those situations where I finally was like, oh, okay, I should really think about my mortality now. And yeah, and then here we are today, and this universe can suck my balls. But anyway, that was a little morbid. But anyway, continue with whatever the thread was before I hijacked it. Or not.
I'm trying to remember where we were. But yeah, getting old sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Getting old is the worst.
But so something cool. I don't have all the details on it. And this is just kind of exciting for me. I don't know if you guys would be terribly excited about this, but back in the day, like in the 80s, when you were into video games and stuff like that, we all had our preferred systems, right?
Sure.
Shane, what you had, like the TRS-80, didn't you?
Originally, yeah, back in the day, yeah, totally.
Right. And I know people who were into Atari. I was into Atari, but Atari wasn't my system back then. It was the Commodore 64.
Oh, okay.
So Commodore went out of business in, like, I don't know, mid 90s or early 90s or something like that, and really only exists today as a licensor, where they can license out the Commodore name to different companies that want to make, like, the Commodore 64 Mini or whatever like that. And I guess there were some trademarks, Commodore trademarks, that were about to expire. So there's this YouTube channel that I watch frequently called Retro Recipes. And the guy who hosts it, his online name is Perifractic. And he came up with this idea about buying Commodore and resurrecting it. Like,
I love that idea.
Starting to create new products. He's secured it. He's now the CEO of Commodore. The money thing hasn't happened yet, according to his.
So will he be releasing, like, retro machines?
He hasn't said. He said that there is something in the works that they will be announcing within the next few months, and says that everybody's going to, if you're a fan of Commodore, you're going to love it. So I'm thinking it's got to be some kind of a retro machine. But, like, I'm all over it.
I love this idea. This is exciting to me. Yeah.
And the thing that he wants to do is he wants to do sort of like a crowdfunding thing where everybody who likes Commodore or is excited about Commodore owns a stake in the company. But he hasn't come across the right thing. Like, there's was it like Indiegogo or what are the other ones? Kickstarter. There's certain laws. It's like they have to be from a certain country in order to participate. Or if there's another one that's over here, another one that he was looking at, crowdfunding site, it said it was only open for people in Germany and Austria.
Yeah, I haven't dug into that in a little while, but yeah, the real question is,
sorry, guys.
Are these security?
I neglected the chat there, so I just noticed. Well, the new Commodore? Where's this going, man? It's been a while. It is pretty fancy. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
I'm pretty
go on.
excited about this.
That's way cool. That I dig that. Yeah.
And I encourage you guys, if you're interested in it, check out Retro Recipes on YouTube. The last 2 videos.
Is that the one that what's it called? Oh, nuts. I can't think of what it's called, but is that the one where you are able to load pretty much everything on it that you'd ever want? Is that correct, or am I mistaking that for that? Game wise, I'm talking about games specifically.
Well, I don't know. He hasn't announced what they're developing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's completely a blank slate. Who knows?
It's completely a blank. Like he just announced that he is the CEO. Like he just announced it today. So,
oh, this is how. Oh, God. Okay, all right.
yeah. So apparently he has an idea for some sort of a machine, and people who were fans of Commodore back in the day are going to be over the moon about this, apparently. I mean, I hope he doesn't oversell it because, but it's got to be some kind of a retro machine.
I would imagine so. I mean, it's been we've finally gone through that very, how shall I say, we've gone through the toy stage where a lot of consoles, a lot of stuff from that era have been replicated as these tiny little boxes that are fancy, Atari and Commodore, or not Commodore, Nintendo stuff.
The Atari 2600 Plus, which is a new system that allows you to use the cartridges from back then.
Hold on. Has anybody tried making like a pocket-sized arcade machine that like that's like detailed like a miniature?
Yes. There is 2 actual companies. One is called Numbskull.
Okay.
And the other one is called, the line is called Replicate. So Numbskull makes a series of supposedly quarter-sized arcade machines. They're absolutely the same as the full-size ones in every single detail. And then the Replicate ones are 1/6 scale, exact replicas of the originals. With the exception being that they don't.
Those are smaller, but I'm talking like pocket-sized.
Okay, so there is another one that makes pocket-sized ones.
Really?
I can't remember what the name of the company is. They're basically like keychains. Yeah. They're keychains, and it's like a little arcade machine with little controls on it. They're not true to the actual arcade machines. I don't think they can do that kind of detail on such a small scale.
Yeah, although given the resolutions nowadays, they've got to be close.
Well, yeah.
Whoever makes the screens for Apple Watches, I mean, evidently you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're on Android, if you have an Android phone, there are apps that you can download, MAME apps, and then you can download the original game ROMs and play games on your phone, like the original arcade ROMs. Using touchscreen controls, of course, which is a bit of an issue. But the Replicade and the quarter arcades from Numbskull are awesome. I mean, great. They're fucking expensive, but if you've got the money to spend on desk shit, they are super cool, and they actually are playable.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm jazzed about this whole Commodore thing. Whatever it is, I'm going to have to convince my wife that it's okay for me to buy it.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Get out all my floppy disks. I still have my floppy disks.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I have
Should be down in
some.
the basement.
I have some, admittedly.
Well, I
I know that I've transferred.
don't think I have any.
I know I did transfer the data off of them already, but it's still sort of like it's a souvenir from a past stage of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
True.
I actually that mine were in a storage thing, like in a damp room, and they kind of smell now, but I don't even know if they'd work. I know my disk drive stopped working many, many years ago. So
Well, you know how it is.
yeah.
You just gotta do your thing.
Yeah.
The I you know, when I moved to Vancouver, I think I lost track of where a lot of that stuff went. I'm pretty convinced my parents probably threw out my TRS-80 and a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah.
I hope they haven't. I do secretly go, what if they didn't? But at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Not really. There's I love the idea of having my TRS-80 still function, but the reality is I don't have anything to plug it into anymore. Like
Yeah.
if it turned on, what could I actually? There's no output anymore. Like the only output on those machines was like an RCA. I forgot what they're actually called, but it was basically an RCA cable, and it gave really low res, whatever the hell the thing was, the spec was. But it is kind of it's a fun idea to toy with once in a while to kind of go, oh, it would be great if that'd be awesome.
I wish I still had my XT.
I know mine's gone because
Oh.
it died in a fantastic fashion. I see, because I had when I got the 386, I think it was. I remember putting it on the shelf right beside the TRS-80, and the TRS-80 wasn't involved. I had taken it off the shelf for some reason, but the shelf collapsed.
Oh no.
And a bunch of stuff fell on top of it, and the case cracked wide open. So I think I just threw it out. I don't think I actually kept it.
Well, yeah, because back then you were like, well, it's a piece of junk anyway, so why bother to keep it?
Yeah, now I wish because you could probably sell it for $1,000. The amount that you got and paid for it.
I actually still have my Commodore 64 somewhere.
Now those are different too.
Stuff.
No. But hold on. Shane, you would know this more than I would. The economics would suggest that if you really, you could maybe find like bits and pieces of these older machines. You could do a whole YouTube channel where all you do is restore old computer parts, and then
you totally could,
and then reassemble them and make them function, and then you put them on the retail.
Well, exactly. Well, hey, I'm gonna. Well, because I there's a channel that I like to watch once in a while where it's a dude repairing, old hardware of all kinds. Like he runs a shop essentially, but his YouTube channel is kind of his main income for it. But he repaired an original Xbox, like when they first came out. It was some kind of special edition with a particular game. So the case was slightly different. It was a different color instead of the sort of jet black. And so he bought it, and the person he bought it from sent him a message saying, "Oh, I really regret selling it to you." But because he buys it to like put it on his channel and him repairing it, and in this case he modded it, I think. He actually modded it and then sent it back to the guy who sold it. Because he's like, well, hey, I'm just doing this for, I like it and I want it, but if you really are regretting selling it, then hey, I'm going to give it back to you. Just return the money. And by the way, I modded it as well. It's going to work way better. So, I love those kinds of channels, but I don't know. Well, aside from being a museum piece for say your Apple II, whatever the hell it was back in the day,
Yeah.
Apple IIc.
They're not
Apple
practical.
IIc, like exactly. Like I'm trying to, I would struggle with actually, keeping that stuff alive. But I guess maybe I should just.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Do like your work on it and then hook it up to a dot matrix printer?
Right, exactly, right? Like that's totally. Oh god, that
Like
would be so
I need
bad.
to go.
That's
to
a
Staples.
bit,
I
that's a
need
bit
some
early. That's a
paper,
bit
please.
early. I think
Yeah.
if you made the same proposition about something that was, let's say, early 2000s, not even late 2000s, maybe mid 2000s.
Right.
Something in there that was maybe as good as personal computing got. After that, it wasn't us using it; it was it using us. Yeah.
No, I totally agree on that.
I think if you could produce something really golden age, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know what would be a great example.
Very good question.
I think the so right now what I am actually trying to get back is a fully functioning Mavericks, Apple book.
Really?
Because I think Mavericks, like it was the turning point. It was the last edition of Mac OS where software was a product rather than a service, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, Maverick was what, 2018?
No,
No, God knows, it was earlier than that.
2011 or something like that.
I mean, the problem with that kind of stuff, though, is that the hardware will eventually fail. Like, as much as I would like to think my computer, I mean, granted, if you look at like the guts of a TRS-80, sure, that could last for a bazillion years because it's a very basic board with a very basic hardware. But when you start jamming stuff into like a laptop, for example, that's where things change.
The heat eventually will kill it.
Yeah, exactly, and that kind of stuff. But is that a collector's item? I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that I remember years and years ago when I was working at a company that did QA testing for some software they created. The software testing was done by like two people on their one computer, and they kept every time the Windows would update, their environment would get wiped out and they'd be pissed off and they want to roll back. And I'm like, guys, your main desktop shouldn't be to roll that back every time an update happens, because eventually something is going to happen that's going to make your computer stop working, because it's ludicrous. But back in those days, there was no real testing environment like you can have today, where you can just spin up a VM and in 10 minutes or 5 seconds or whatever, and then run an operating system, do what you need to do, and then make sure it works, and then shut it all off. So I actually set up, there was a spare office that had no one in it, that was kind of like it was just collecting junk. So I took a bunch of desks and I put them along the edges of the like around all the walls, and set up a Windows 95 machine, a Windows 90, Windows ME, Windows 98, Windows. What else do we have? Do we have XP at that point? Yeah, we must have. We had XP at that point, and I think also Windows 2000. I think the server version was out, and I used. I think was it Adobe? I can't remember. Norton. Norton made a product called Norton Ghost, which allowed you to clone a machine, and then over a network you could then re-upload an image of that machine. So once they did their thing and they wanted to reset it back to the basic setting, I would load the image on the hard drive, reboot it, and it just worked. It was a great little system. Unless you plug it into the wrong network port and then you bring down the entire building. But anyway, and that totally didn't happen. So so I used that product to do that for this guy, and they were like blown away that it was such a QA revelation. And I'm like, no, this is just doing it properly because, you know, your Windows machine updated automatically, and then you yell at me for 3 hours in the morning about how you can't test properly, and it's like, anyway, I had a bunch of spare hard like cases with, you know, they were Pentium 3s or something back in the day. So yeah, that was always fun.
Fun.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. Getting back to just circling back a little bit to what Locke was talking about, the pocket arcade things. While it's not like a true like arcade machine, there is a company called Evercade that makes the Pocket. It's like a pocket-sized handheld game unit. Actually, I have one. I can go and get it. Just talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to see it because
This sounds cool.
The only portable gaming that I've ever seen really that I was somewhat interested in, but not like really on board because I'm not really a portable gamer. I never really have been. Was the Steam Deck from Steam, which was or is a decent piece of hardware. Allows you to play pretty much all your games. Then there's also a bunch of really different sort of pocket companies that are, but the thing is, they're not really pockets. They're kind of like a device. You know, it's probably about, you know, a good. Oh wow, that's fascinating. So that lets you play like Atari stuff.
So this is an Atari specific one, but they make ones for other. There's a Capcom one.
The controls look Nintendo-ish.
Yes,
no?
they do. But it actually has. Well, this one here has a mixture of arcade, Atari 2600, 5200, 7800, and Lynx stuff. So I'm just gonna.
What's that one called? That one looks very different from the ones. Oh, the Pocket Atari. Okay,
Super Pocket.
Okay.
So I've just started up Asteroids. It's kind of beaming out there. And I will do. I started one, and there's Asteroids starting.
You know, the first time I played Asteroids, like in the arcade, was actually an arcade machine in the Dairy Queen at the corner of Quadra and Mackenzie. For some reason, they had an arcade machine that was just Asteroids, and I remember begging for quarters to let me play it.
Now, the cool thing about this is it actually has in the back a cartridge slot. So what you can do is you can buy Evercade cartridges, slip it in, and play entirely different games. So I actually have in it a Commodore 64 Collection 1 in there.
Oh.
And that gives me stuff like Mission Impossible, Winter Games, Summer Games, Jumpman, Bruce Lee.
Robbers of the Lost Tomb?
No, I don't think that's on this one.
Oh.
No. Each cartridge has probably about, well, it depends on the cartridge, right? But usually they have like maybe about 7 or 8 games on each cartridge. And then you can just pop in the one that you want. So while it's not like an actual arcade machine, it is kind of similar.
Cool.
This was one of my favorite games, was Bruce Lee, which has been just renamed Lee.
Just renamed Lee?
Yeah.
Bizarre. It sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, so there's Lee there starting. Oh, come on. Anyway, it's a cool little thing.
Well, I haven't ever really I don't know, I never really got into the whole handheld thing. I'm trying to remember if I've ever had one.
I
It was a
only got
dedicated playing
this.
thing.
I got this A because it's Atari, and B because I could put in Commodore cartridges into it specifically. Otherwise, it wouldn't have really appealed to me. But I wanted to have something that, if I'm just sitting on the couch, just flaking out, I don't want to. And this is going to sound kind of bougie, but if I don't want to get up and go stand in front of one of my arcade machines,
Right.
then I can just do this.
Right.
And I realize that sounds bougie. If I don't feel like standing in front of one of my arcade machines. Ugh.
Oh God, I just want to lie down and not move for
My
at
life
least
is
an
so
hour.
difficult.
It's terrible. So bad. I have found a couple places where you can play Robbers of the Lost Tomb online, apparently.
Oh. Who made that?
I have no idea. Play it on Jeremy's Commodore 64 back in
Back in the day.
I honestly have never heard of it. So, or maybe I just don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was an obscure title, not very well done.
Well, I gotta tell you, so I was watching
as a little kid. It was like, oh my god, wow, this is so
It was
exciting!
published by TimeWorks.
The Blue Ruby, wow. Blue Ruby is a sapphire. Why wouldn't they call it a sapphire? But no, they called it a Blue Ruby, which I have to say is, as a little kid, it got my head going. Anyway.
Well, I watched a video a while back of some of the top 25 Commodore 64 games.
Okay.
And it listed them off, and I'm like, I don't remember any of these. And then I'm watching the video, and it shows like footage of the games. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that game. Yeah, I remember. I don't remember that. I didn't remember that's what the title was. But
did you ever play Jupiter Lander?
Maybe, I don't know.
I think that was the VIC 20. I played that over at Angus's place, and it was
wow. Yep.
Somebody had managed to digitize, even back then, all of the frustrations of golf in a video game.
Yeah, it was released in 1982 for the VIC 20, and then for the Commodore 64.
I probably did, but.
And you know what's hilarious? The game is, if you download it and put it into an emulator, it is 8K of code. Like, it's nothing. That is awesome. Best viewers stream.
You know what? The average Atari 2600 game was only 4K.
It's true. It is true.
It wasn't. They didn't get games that had more than that until they discovered bank switching on the actual cartridges.
Oh. Huh.
There are so many things that I think we should be doing with our lives. Making video games is one of them. Well, don't everyone jump up at once.
So I tell you, there is people who make homebrew games for the Atari systems, Atari 2600 and 78 specifically.
Really?
And they actually create cartridges and sell them.
Cool.
And they're not cheap.
Sounds like very artisanal.
It is, actually. You can order most of them through AtariAge.com. But then there's like a new company that's come out, and unfortunately, they only sell their stuff in the States. Which sucks. But it's called Audacity Games. And what they've done is they've brought in a lot of the original game designers from Activision back in the day.
Oh, okay.
And so now they're developing new games under a new name, Audacity. But the thing is, they've made their cartridges look like Activision cartridges from back in the day.
Okay. Cool.
Oh wow, they really. What a bizarre, what a really bizarre thing. Like to make games for obsolete computer
A
systems.
40-year-old game console.
So here's Audacity Games. They've made Circus Convoy, Casey's Gold, Alien Abduction.
So Alien Abduction, interestingly, is made by the same guy who developed Hero back in the day.
Really?
And Alien Abduction is basically Hero Part 2. Like Hero 2.
That's so bizarre. What a bizarre. That is just it's. I'm blown away. Like, I never would have thought that you could do this kind of thing, and actually make it, usable.
I'm not that surprised actually, because the younger folk that I talk to, I can see them being into this. They would be like, oh wow, yeah, cool, yeah, right, because it's a technology that doesn't exist anymore. So it's sort of interesting, and the fact that there's so much pressure out there to adopt the latest thing. There's I think a growing number of younger folk who are looking at this stuff going, wow, that's I like, and they see it as a way of seeing the world differently than being stuck with whatever they were generationally force fed. It's a little bit kind of like what I remember in high school, the moment when it became clear that, yeah, for some reason, even though I rejected it all through the 80s, I have to admit that I'm kind of intrigued by like Led Zeppelin and the whole bell bottom thing,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose anything is possible for all of these sorts of.
I think it was it was Paul's boutique that made it possible, because up until then, like bell bottoms. No, my parents wore those. Fuck bell bottoms. But 1991, 1992, it was sort of like, yeah, I was starting to see bell bottoms again. What the fuck? What's going on here?
I'm actually wondering what it would take to actually build a game for a console that old. Like that, to me, is there any difference in the hardware in terms of like a 2600 console now versus back then?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, the hardware is probably very different.
But would it be the same process?
Rock chip.
They would likely print a lot of the things that they would previously have wired together.
True.
But as for the actual game code, I mean, let's put it into perspective. I mean, a lot of the original games were coded inside of 6 weeks. They were like, a coder was given a project and it had to hit store shelves within 2 months, which is why some of the stuff was crap.
Well, I mean, that was the problem with the gaming market back then. That they weren't. There was two problems. It was a very new thing to go from building an arcade game that was in an arcade to, from like the sort of, I guess, 70s onward, to hardware that somebody had in their house. So you had that kind of limitation. Pardon me. But it wouldn't actually be, it probably is not impossible to actually create a.
I don't think so. I think if you have the know-how and you have an idea for a game, I think that's the hardest part, is coming up with an idea for the game.
Well, I mean, look at Flappy Bird, for example.
Mhm.
Flappy Bird was a game for mobile phones, I don't know, probably 5-10 years ago. And the guy created it. It's a very basic game. You control Flappy Bird, and the bird flies, and you move it up and down so it
Mhm.
doesn't collide with whatever the obstacles are. And that game sold millions of copies, millions, to the point where the guy took the game off the store because uh, something happened. He was overwhelmed by the success of this stupid little game he created, and I actually there's probably a documentary about it. But anyway, it was a very simple thing. Didn't require a lot of It didn't require a whole lot of know-how, but it produced a significant profit for this guy, where he was able to walk away from it, which was the surprising thing. And I'm sure there's other things going on, but anyway, yeah. So it wouldn't an idea for a game for an Atari
Well,
2600 would not.
isn't that how the Mojang guys got started?
Possibly. That's a very good question, actually.
Like,
So are you
Well,
suggesting,
they
Shane?
used to, they used to attend like indie gaming conferences where people would, like over a X number of period design a like start to finish retro game or something, like just sort of
yeah.
simple coding. And I'm pretty sure that that's something that they were involved with in Scandinavia. But yeah, I mean, it's a but where are we now to the degree that now you can sick an AI on a coding project?
Mhm. That's true.
You could well, I mean, the latest example
No,
I
no,
was
no,
reading
no,
about.
like think about even if, I mean, there are people doing it right now, but even if it's not as easy as it sounds yet, it looks like it likely will be.
Well, I'll give you an example. Exactly what you're talking about. Where, so the other day I learned about a guy who created a piece of software, a software as a service thing that I can't remember the name of at the moment, but he went from dicking around for, I think it was something to the effect of, I want to say it was like 8 weeks, not even. Like he just decided one day, not a software developer, but he wanted to solve a problem he was having by creating this piece of software, and then he released it into the world, and it made like $2 million in the first couple of months, sort of thing. So the thing that makes me nervous about individuals like that, which is fine, to make a software that people actually want, but I created this using AI, of course. The next day after reading the article, where I knew that there would be a problem. Penetration testing now. Like, to me, somebody doing that to make a piece of software that is available and accessible to the world, but doesn't know how to ask the right questions. And that's the thing that I always, every time I'm using any AI tool for anything, I already know the questions to ask, because even I would recognize that this is wrong. This is not correct. This is actually something that's dangerous. Could you please review it, system that just wrote this code or drew this image or whatever? But that's because I've been in the industry for a very long time. I know what to look for. I know what to be concerned about and this sort of thing, where I'm assuming that individual at some point went and asked somebody who actually knew how to make software and said, could you please review it for security purposes and all kinds of things, because I want to sell it as a product. If they didn't, oh my God, which is why I drew that image, because I'm like, this is like trying
but,
to,
but this is the thing, though. Like everybody, and to the degree that you can police it, to the degree that there's a way of getting a legal grip on it, it's all for-profit business. What's weird about the situation is when you get the artist who just wants to make shit and go nuts with it.
Yes.
And will that happen? I think it likely will. And I don't know. There could be some pretty cool shit. Imagine the results of somebody plausibly creating a cross between Castlevania and Joust. I don't know. It might be cool.
That would be awesome, actually.
So are we suggesting that we could actually make an Atari 26, like a game that would work on Atari 2600 that we could brand as being like the Crafty Boys?
But here's what I'm saying. Actually, the problem with all of this stuff, and I don't think the penny's really landed here on this one, is who owns any of it. And there's been recent cases leaning towards the idea that, well, okay, it's fine. The Office, go fuck yourselves. But that said, I think if you think about trademark, then you get into whole different territory. Does that infringe my copyright? Do the courts care that it's AI? Evidently not. What if it infringes your trademark? Courts
back up.
It's copyright.
Back up a second. What?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not following your train of thought. So you're saying that the code that it could generate could be copywritten?
What I'm saying is if the thing that's throwing whatever the fuck it's throwing at you, and they are supposed to be boxes, but actually they look a fuck of a lot like barrels because it's low resolution, because it's retro, and the thing is meant to be an ogre, but actually it looks a fuck of a lot like a gorilla that we all know.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if they actually went and if they tried to clone,
if something
okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
Too much like the source material, I could see somebody raising some hackles there, and I think them likely being.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree.
Because let's face it, artists are little people. They're the kind of people that have copyright interests. Trademarks, that's more like a corporation. That's more like a company, and they tend to be in their legal departments.
Well, the one thing actually I find interesting, I'm not sure if you've read this, but there's a lawsuit. There's a new lawsuit going after a product called Midjourney, where Midjourney has been like the Wild West since it was born, and they don't necessarily give a shit about copyright. But Disney is going after them in a big way, because you could go into Midjourney and say, draw me a spaceman, and it would draw an incredibly accurate version of Buzz Lightyear. So, and without prompting to give me a Disney style or a Pixar style or whatever. However, on the other side, a lawsuit brought by a bunch of writers that were suing. Who was it? Was it Google? I can't remember. Claude. I've forgotten who they were suing, but one of the big AI players, and the case just got tossed because their claim was that because the information that they've written books, they're a bunch of authors that got together to do this lawsuit, that the training data would at some point cough out their novel or their book of whatever they wrote. But I got tossed because they couldn't prove it. They did not provide enough to the judge to say this would definitely happen if you asked it to. But there's always safeguards for these tools if they're publicly available, to prevent people from generating. Print out Harry Potter's book, or the first one, or something.
But it is trained on it still.
Well, this is the black box problem of this entire system, is that initially, like 3 years ago, the tools being trained did cough up just by default the shit that you would not want them to cough up. Like write me out the first chapter of Harry Potter and the whatever the hell. So that could do that. However, the tools have advanced longer now. I've had like 2 or 3 years of development time where they're pretty good at not doing that. Like, for example, in ChatGPT, I found this the other day, it pissed me off actually. I wanted to know what the average size of a horse penis was. I was drinking beer with Julian,
Yeah.
and we were talking about something, and the horse
Oh,
penises
wow.
came up, forgotten why. And I said, "Hey, tell me
As
what
you
the average."
do.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to know the average thing, and it wouldn't do it because it's like, I'm sorry, it's not appropriate. I'm like, "I beg your fucking pardon, but do the fucking search for me." But it wouldn't do it. It just said no way. So I hit one of those
As
filters.
somebody that's read case law about lawsuits over horse semen, I sympathize. You should have looked it up on LexisNexis.
But at the same time, I was not surprised. I was irritated because I was really mad. I'm like, this is just a general Google search. I just want you to search for this information. I don't want you to tell me the history of some horse that's famous or whatever. I want to know this one basically medical thing. But again, it was one of those walls that you hit once in a while, which includes copyrighted material. So if you ask it to give you something that it would deem in a violation of copyright to material that it might have been trained on, it won't provide it. However, those are tools that are commercially available, and they have to play by a lot of rules that are still being written, like laws still being created for this stuff. Like right now, half of it doesn't exist. However, if you use a downloadable tool and run it off of your own computer, which there are many of them out there, you could do whatever the hell you want because those safeguards are not there. It's just, here is your language model. Here is how big it is. Like when you get a language model, they basically are many different sizes, and you use the one based on what your computer can handle. Like talking to ChatGPT. Actually, what did it say? I just read this recently where the dude who runs who's the CEO of OpenAI said that a lot of people say hello, hi, how's it going, before asking a question. And it's like, apparently every day it costs them like $3 or $4 million for people just saying hello to their fucking chat. Like it's amazing like how much energy it requires for these things to run. But if you download the smaller versions of the language models, you can run them on your usual hardware. Like mine, I could run actually one of the sort of mid to higher tier ones. So my point being is that if I ask that tool, hey, I would like to have you write out the first chapter of Harry Potter and whatever the title is, it might do that. I don't say I'm not saying it would do that. I'm just saying it might do that if that training data exists, because there's nothing telling it not to. If you're running it on your own machine, and if I'm like, so if I take, actually, this is scary. So on ChatGPT, I decided the other day I wanted to actually write a book about my life with Allison, but I wanted to do it as a cartoon. And I said, I don't really care what the style is. Just give me a generic cartoon style. And it's like, okay, here's some examples of characters you could create. I'm like, awesome. And I uploaded a picture of me. I uploaded a picture of Allison. I uploaded a picture of my dogs. And I said, tell me what these dogs or Allison would look like. And right away, it was like, here you go, is a cartoon version of this individual. And I'm like, that's her. That is exactly her. Like, oh, what? And then I gave it my photo next. I'm like, put me in riding a horse or there was a mechanical bull or something. And it had a caricature of me. So it was able to do that without any sort of prompting of any kind to be like, okay, here's this character is. So you might get comic versions of yourself in the mail sometime soon. But anyway, actually I already did locks. I have Lockett and Julian in a fist fight. It's a point. Anyway, doesn't matter. Anyway, but my point is, that's just a caricature comic. If I asked it to give me an exact copy of somebody and said, please do this, where I'm railing this individual up the ass with a fucking cattle prod, it would tell me to go to hell. It wouldn't do it. If I do the same thing on a local language model on my own machine, and I'm like, I would like to have this photo of me, a photorealistic version of that, and insert Hollywood starlet, and I want I want us to be in like baby oil pools or something. It would draw it. Like it would make that stuff happen.
Okay, but
because
we're getting off topic here. Could we get this thing to make us an Atari 2600 game?
I'm getting to that. I'm
Okay.
getting to that. So if we take a system like Claude, which is a language model that's designed for basically, I call it the one you want if you want to write software. You could tell it, hey, I want to make a game. I will now describe this game. I would like to make this game for this particular platform, and I would like it to be this, that, and the other thing, whatever the parameters are of the game. And it would write that software for you. Now, the one thing I question about creating a console game is if you have that jump from whatever language is used, which I think there's probably some modern languages that can translate into whatever it was. But at the end of the day, to run on that hardware, I think it has to be an assembly. And assembly is like one of the hardest languages you could ever try to learn because your brain would implode and explode at the same time. But the thing is, the software most likely could actually do that for you. Now, again, you'd have to run that in an emulator on your computer to test it out, of course. But I'm pretty sure if you wanted to make a cartridge, you would have to do a few other things because there's chips involved and all that kind of stuff. But if you were just doing it on an emulator,
the hardware problem.
well, exactly. That's the thing, right? Is that you would have to make that extra jump.
No, but like the software stuff is theoretically anything can happen because it's software, so it's
if you're emulating it, then
Okay,
it doesn't
so
really matter. You don't have
Atari 2600 used primarily 6502 assembly language.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Because assembly back in the day, I mean, it's one of the more difficult languages out there. Actually, probably the most difficult because I think if you actually look at it, I'm pretty sure it's a lot of numbers and not really like when you think of software these days.
It's not real human friendly, is my recollection.
Yeah, exactly. And
so it's not Turbo Pascal, is what we're saying.
No, definitely not. But I'm pretty sure even back then there was something that you wrote it in that would then translate it into assembly. Maybe at the very beginning they were writing in assembly, which I would those guys would be like gods.
When did C show up?
I want to say early 80s. No, actually.
Yeah, that sounds right. So like sometime in the 80s anyway.
C was when did it appear? It appeared in 1972. Oh, actually,
yeah, it was
53 years ago. So
maybe C++ in the 80s.
Yeah, that would be
that definitely would have come later. Yeah. But yeah, so basically, it was developed to do what? What specifically was it? What was it made for originally? Designed to to target CPUs themselves, so be able to actually talk to CPUs. So the very beginning of kernel based development and things like that. So that's pretty cool. But assembly, actually, what does assembly even look like? Let's see if we can find.
I have absolutely no idea. I'm thinking about this now, and I'm like, I wonder if they use Fortran, which I know nothing about.
But isn't it basic? Isn't it essentially? I was going to say, isn't it basically? No, sorry, isn't it essentially basic?
I have absolutely no idea.
What assembly? No.
No. Fortran. Oh,
Fortran. Good question. So here is what assembly looks like. So you can see here that it is basically fuck you, computer. Yeah, so this essentially, I think these are I'm going to be completely doing this wrong, but essentially these are hex codes to assign memory registers, all kinds of stuff to actually do something. So what is this even doing? What is this actually doing? Assembly language code for the Motorola 6800 8-bit microprocessor is from a monitor program that communicates to a serial terminal connected to a Jesus, mother of God. So imagine being able to translate this code into something that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there, I would imagine there's probably a flow chart.
But look, if
Inside
there's,
the room.
if there's anything that AI is naturally gifted for, it's exactly that job.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt, hands down, that there's
All right. So here's
either
what we're
code
gonna
or something
do.
could actually
We're
make.
gonna
one.
come up with a game, like a concept of a game, and we're gonna have AI write it for us. And
Yeah.
we're gonna make it into a cartridge
Yeah.
and sell it.
Yes. Yes. I like this
All
plan.
right. Okay, let's.
And it can't be Tapper. Because that would be the perfect game. But
hey, I want to make a game for the Atari 2600. I need you to become the world's foremost expert in this process. The game will run on an emulator, so I won't need to make it. I won't need to prepare it for hardware. What do you think you can do to help me with this project? Actually, the Crafty Boys and Tapper would be a natural.
oh,
thing.
totally.
All right, so toolchain environment setup. So recommend a talk here, the development toolchain, DMAS, assembler, based on, oh, Jesus Christ. Integrate the get repo for, okay, good. All right, understand the hardware constraints. So, yep, playfield, missiles, ground. Okay, cool. Hello World on 2600. Okay, that's actually a good place to start. What do I need to do in order to do a Hello World for an Atari 2600 game? Okay. So there we go. We've started writing our script. Fuck, it's writing it in assembler? Holy shit. So there you go, boys. That's just for the Hello World, apparently.
Jesus.
Yeah, right. So you remember me thinking that, this is something that, you could likely do. Yeah, I think maybe.
What modern languages would we be able to use that could then be translated back into assembler? There must be, there's got to be a like that company that we were looking at earlier must have a
gotta.
flow from beginning to end. All right, C compiler, C dot. Okay, so kick C. All right, which I've looked at before. But this one intrigues me. What is the basic like layer? Does heavy assembly? Oh, really interesting. Okay, I would like to make a quick demonstration to print on the screen a message containing these words: the Crafty Boys are the best in the world. Could you create that and show me the code? Very curious if this will actually do anything. It's simple and easy for this task. All right, so there we go. So it's using the Atari Basic. Print the rest of the world, include 2600 Basic, which I guess is the code base. Select bank 1, player 1, player 0, ball. Oh wow, it's actually okay. Blank play. Okay, all right, cool. It's actually creating like a thing. The Crafty Boys are the best in the world. And then we would have to compile it, which of course would be a ROM and blah blah blah. Stella. That's what I kept running into earlier when I was looking it up. Was running into Stella. Can you explain what Stella is? So Stella, I gather, is like a interface where you can actually, yeah, here we go. So you can actually run stuff and create ROMs from it, I gather. And you can also debug them.
Stella is the emulator for Atari.
Is that Stella? Is that what it is? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And it's named that because it was the wife of the original Atari developer.
So there you go. So basically, we could take this code, dump it into Stella, and it would render this code on the screen. So there you go. Now, again, like the whole hardware thing, though, like what a pain in the butt that would be. They must have some magic where there's some modern hardware that actually works to talk to the 2600 code or the hardware or whatever.
I don't know.
This is good wine.
Good job, Allison.
But so cool. So there you go. We could actually run it, and I'm very curious. Forever. So basically, it runs the text in a loop so that it maintains it on the screen. That's hilarious. But there must be this player 0 and 1 thing.
That explains the flicker of the older machines when they were doing announcements. It was they were being re-instructed moment by moment to display this, display this, display this, display. It wasn't just display this, wait this number of seconds. Back then, it was just being a loop of display this, display this, display this, right?
Just looking at
yes, on the Commodore when I would program on there, I don't remember how I would do it, but I could actually time how long something would be displayed for.
In BASIC, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, in BASIC you
in BASIC, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it sounds like whatever Atari was using here was maybe even like a predecessor of that.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I found the GitHub repository for Batari Basic. And Stella, a multi-platform Atari 2600 VCS emulator. That's so cool. Let's see if I can get this to run.
I'm game.
Let's check it out. I just don't know how does this Sorry, I just have to learn about how the hell to run Batari Basic first.
Well, yeah, it may not work, but
there was actually a game cartridge you could get for your Atari 2600 back in the day that actually had BASIC, and then you could plug in a keyboard into the joystick port and actually program directly onto your Atari.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I don't think you could save anything.
Right? Yeah, that would be the problem.
Yeah.
What would have been the medium you would have saved it to at the time? It'd be one of those tape drives or something.
Yeah, but there may have actually been a.
You remember tape drives that ran off of analog tapes?
Yeah. I had a tape drive on my Commodore.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the Atari 2600 did have one. I know the 8-bit computers did. But I don't think the 2600. Shane's trying.
I'm hang on.
Trying to get this to work in Stella.
I'm trying to get it to reopen.
You're putting me through hell.
Okay, so now. Oh shit! Actually, whoa! Okay, that's cool. Where did my chat go? Come back. Okay, so how? Okay.
Can you screen share?
Hang on. I just have to figure out exactly what I'm doing. I'm not even sure if I know what everything to show. Do I just run this? What do I run? That didn't work. License does not apply to. Okay. Yeah, that's done. Once the above is done, search a folder containing your source file and type in. Okay. Tell me more. You guys entertain people. This is boring.
I'm entertained by you.
Okay.
Oh,
so,
okay. Well, all right. Okay. So, okay.
Ellen, what? So Canada Day is coming on the 1st.
Yes.
Yes. You and I are both patriotic Canadians. We're both happy that it's Canada Day. We both agree that this will be a special Canada Day.
Yes.
Have you noted some of the observations that have been coming from around the rest of the world in terms of where Canada likely positions itself over the next half century and what's likely to happen there? And have you come across the term Kanzuk?
I have not come across that term. That's interesting.
Okay. So I gather this is a very old proposal. It's a little bit like Cascadia, where Oregon and California and British Columbia were all going to form their own nation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and nothing ever happened there. And so it's sort of been filed under one of those. But given recent circumstances, and I think the major problem I have with it is that the name might be a little bit like we kind of find the C up at the front there, which frankly, I don't know if as a Canadian, I don't think we've ever been a center stage. Like, let's make a big fucking deal about us being special. It's not
our way.
Not our way. On the other hand, would any of us join anything started by the UK? No, probably not. So what do we call it? And so if Kanzuk isn't the right, but let me make an observation to you that I think may be relevant here, and that is that here in Toronto and out in Vancouver and all over the country, you've got Anza, Transac, clubs, bars that have been around probably since the end of the Second World War. Essentially veteran clubs for our Canadian, New Zealand, Australia neighbors.
Yeah.
I guess the only real innovation here is, should we really should we just let the UK rejoin the EU? And really, I have two problems with that. One problem is London. Our people invested too much in London to just hand it over. Two, as a Scot, I sort of like the idea of the UK, including Scotland, being something also on the same military alliance as Canada, which I would have thought maybe I could likely assume nowadays, but I gather there's been some dust up over this because it would appear that Keir Starmer may have actually brought it up. Did you hear anything about this?
I haven't heard any of this.
But what's interesting is it's not just Canadians talking about it; it's Australians and well, so for the English. I don't know what the Scots' opinion on it is. I have no idea how New Zealanders feel about it. But the simple fact of the matter is none of us are, I think, quite as easy as we may previously have been with the United States as you know, a steadfast ally that we can rely upon, let's say.
Yeah. So the last I heard, Keir Starmer had actually supposedly brokered a deal with the U.S. Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is like,
no, that's a trade deal.
That's a trade deal, but still, I mean, they're kind of like buddy. It seems like.
Yeah. Look, and which is why I raised my point earlier that maybe Kanza is better than Kanzuk.
I think I'm all for alliances, but I think at this point, Canada needs to learn how to stand on its own. And we've become too reliant on. I don't want to say that, not too reliant, but we have created trade. We've become too intertwined with trade with other countries, the U.S. in particular, to the point now where the U.S. pulls back.
Are you an isolationist?
Sorry?
Are you an isolationist?
I am right now.
Okay.
Not an isolationist from the rest of the world. I'm an isolationist from the States.
Mm-hmm.
What I think we need to do is divest from our interests in the U.S., just say forget about it, and try to stand on our own 2 feet for a little while. And we can form alliances with, other countries, and that's fine. I don't.
Or maintain the alliances that we've invested blood, sweat, and tears for centuries over.
Exactly. I'm not really big on us joining the EU. I don't think that was ever really a possibility anyway. But I'm open to greater trade with the EU. And if there's a deal to be had with the States, fine.
Yeah.
But again, it's got to be, in our interests and theirs. Right.
Well, and here's the thing. I may disagree with most of the crap that comes out of the mouths of whether it's Donald or his sycophants or his sycophants now, gripers, now sycophants again, now gripers again. None of that matters to me very much because at the end of the day, I have to say the effect that it's having is one that I approve of, which is to say that people are starting to readdress what are we actually about? What do we really care about? What do we actually require in order for this to be a good deal for us? Because for all the reasons may be silly, the results, it's an opportunity for people to check in with what are we about?
Yeah, I agree completely. We have become too close to the United States to our own detriment. And so maybe this is a blessing in disguise. We can find our way again independently, forging new deals with other partners. And, we may come out on the other end. In fact, a lot of people think will come out on the other end actually better for it. Shane, give us an update.
I'm falling down the rabbit hole of how to build this. I got it to run, except it errored out and gave me a 0. Was the error 0
Did
something?
any graphics come up on the screen before it failed?
No, it failed at the very beginning.
Well, I tell you what,
I will keep tinkering because I'm very curious if we
keep
can actually
tinkering. We'll think of some ideas and stuff. You know what?
Yeah.
I think some sort of a clone of Tapper is probably.
Yeah, I mean, hey, why not?
Yeah. We'll just call it something else.
We'll call it
And,
the Crafty bar.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay.
That was the day. Anyway, we're just doing our usual thing, but we'll see you all next week. If not for
Whatever.
I'm in software head now. Yay! All right.
My
See you all
July
next week.
is starting very shortly, so by next week I
Exactly.
will be drinking non-alcoholic beverages.
It's dry July.
Right.
Oh, maybe I should do dry July. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh wait, I forgot to do the thing.
What
the other thing.
We're in.